Yesterday at our family service, some of us shared our thoughts about Vince's legacy and his impact on our lives, and our niece Crystal shared how Vince helped her face her fears. And I thought about that last night. He helped me face my fears, whether it was a fear about starting a master's program or a fear of going somewhere, doing something, saying something to someone. He helped me face my fears as well. He had a way of emboldening you because he understood he was often the underdog himself, but nobody had fight like he did. And so he taught me how to fight and compete. Even if you think it's inevitable that you're going to lose, you fight and you compete. The legacies he has left me in his former athletes, who are now young men and women, is invaluable. I've had the opportunity to talk with some of his former athletes, to see their lives mold and to know that Vince played a small part in that, but to hear them reflect on what he taught them and what he instilled in them, and to see these young men now come alongside of me and to keep in touch with me. What can we do for you? How can we support you? What do you need done? Name it. We're there in a heartbeat. I thank him for that legacy. My husband gave me a deeper faith, which is probably a little bit ironic. If you know Vince, he was not traditionally a man of great faith. He was not a church-going man, but he gave me a deeper faith because some people would say I brought the faith to him. That is probably true. But he taught me how to pray harder, how to lean into God's strength harder, how to face fears of decisions that I didn't know how to make, how to face the fear of decisions that I feared would come out in the worst way possible. He helped me to face that. Ironically, he did befriend some clergy in the hospital. Many clergy stopped by because we spent over 200 days at UCLA Medical Center this year. And so many would stop by. The one he chose to befriend, which makes his family and I laugh, was the rabbi. Rabbi Dror. And I had no idea he was befriending the rabbi, really, until the last week of his life, maybe 2 weeks of his life. But Rabbi Dror would stop by and they would just talk. And I was very much like Vince, kind of gravitate towards the one you wouldn't expect him to. And Rabbi Dror gave me great comfort in the final days. He said to me one day in the room, he said, I've only had, a few weeks to know Vince and certain conversations with him, but he said, this I know, he's a man of values. And that was right on. Vince was strongly connected to his values, and he would stand by them and defend them. And the rabbi told me that man, that kind of man, is hard to find today. He also told me, as he looked at Vince, he said, in my time, in my profession, I work with death a lot, unfortunately, being a hospital clergy. And he said, I know what death looks like. And he said, I want to assure you, as you make your decisions, Vince is ready. I see it in his eyes, and he's ready. And that brought me great comfort. It brought us comfort to know that we were doing the right thing for Vince. The last year of his life was difficult, and I'm grateful that many of you were spared of seeing him in that condition so that your memories are positive and are true. There was a poem, and I had posted this on Facebook I found this as a Spanish teacher years ago because the poet is actually Chilean. His name is Pablo Neruda. And he wrote some beautiful love poetry. But I read it to Vince early in our marriage and then put it away for a long time, kind of forgetting about it. But I pulled it back out the last week of his life, and when he and I were alone and I would be sitting by his bed listening to music, holding his hand, I'd pull this poem out and read it to him. And in part, it says, I love you without knowing how or when or from where. I love you straightforwardly, without complexities or pride. So I love you because I know no other way than this, where I does not exist, nor you, so close that your hand on my chest is my hand, so close that your eyes close as I fall asleep. The night Vincent passed, actually it was an early morning, I was not with him. I had gone to the hotel to rest out of exhaustion, because once we pulled his breathing tube out, we really had no idea how much time we would have with him. In reality, we had almost 30 hours after we pulled the breathing tube out. And I had gone to the hotel to rest. Well, in the room, his brother and sister and his sister had mentioned a Danish custom of leaving the window open to let the spirit of the deceased escape. And so we couldn't leave a window open on the 8th floor of Ronald Reagan. But inadvertently, I had gone to the hotel, a couple blocks from the hospital, walked there, and the hotel has windows, no screens, just an open window. And without thinking, I just opened the window and collapsed into bed. And shortly after 5 a.m., he took his last breath. And I like to think that as his eyes were closed and my eyes were closed, that he left that hospital room, came right over to the hotel room, kissed me on the forehead, and went out the window, and is here with us. He left a great legacy as a teacher and a coach. As Sean shared for us, his passion for sports began very early. And we were going through some things I found in our cedar chest just the other day. And I wanted to share with you this little poem he wrote based on the artwork that we found with it. He was very small, maybe 1st or 2nd grade. And apparently they had been asked to write about something that they loved, because many children wrote about puppies and mothers and kittens. My husband wrote about sports. And they made these little tiny 4-line poems. And this is his poem. Sports, active and rough, full of excitement, makes me want to eat. Sports. Precious. I like the makes me want to eat part. That's because he came from an Italian family, right? So I think his legacy as a teacher, his passion, whether he was teaching, whether he was coaching, he had passion for the underdog, always. When we were watching sports, he always had passion for the underdog. But he taught his athletes, one, put in the time. And his coaches, he demanded that too. Put in the time, work hard, compete, and expect victory. There's the positivity. Expect victory, even if you think it looks overwhelming. Many of you followed Vince's progress on a Facebook page I created for him called Fight on Coach LePerry. And I created that shortly after his transplant, which was actually a year ago yesterday. And when he was more coherent, I showed him the page and began to show him things people had posted, comments they had made. And he looked at me and he said, well, you know, sweetheart, I always knew they loved you. But I really didn't know that I made a difference in people's lives. And so, thank you, those of you that followed and those of you that commented. it taught him that he did make a difference. And I'm reminded of the movie Mr. Holland's Opus, one of my favorites. I watched it before I ever knew I would be a teacher. This movie is about a music teacher, Glenn Holland, who, after 30 years of teaching, his music program is eliminated. And so they're doing a farewell event for him, where he's going to conduct a symphony that he's worked his whole life on. And at the end of the movie, a former student kind of pays tribute to Mr. Holland and the influence that she had. And I'm going to steal a couple lines from that as I talk to my husband, wherever his picture is over here. And Vince might have felt that he was a small player, that he might not have had an impact. And I just want to say, sweetheart, you had a profound influence. Look around you. There's not a life in this room that you have not touched. And each one of us is a better person because of you. And I, again, thank Rosamond for embracing us, for loving us, for supporting us, for mourning with us. You have shown us what community truly is. One other thing I would just like to make mention of, without discussing this with a lot of powers that be yet, I did decide early on that I would establish a scholarship fund for him in his memory. His greatest joy was to see his athletes, quote unquote, put it together and realize that athletics and academics go hand in hand, and that athletics lays the most basic foundation for life. And so I am pleased to announce that we will establish a LaPerry's Legacy Scholarship Fund. And this fund, we hope, will have two purposes. One, to support scholar athletes in their post-secondary endeavors, for those kids that have put it together and figured out that academics and athletics go hand in hand, and provide support. Also, we had some discussion shortly after Vince's death about possibly doing some clinics in the summer where existing Rosamond teams can, we can give some financial assistance to put on clinics, maybe to help benefit the kids that are here and help that money to have a greater impact. And so it will mean a lot of hard work, even fundraising, but I'm a girl who can take on a project. And this is what I must do to honor him. So I unashamedly will ask you to consider making a contribution, and I have left some cards at different tables around the room. If you're not able to do that today, that you could return later. If you are able or led to make a contribution. You'll see them marked as LaPerry's Legacy. And I will be working over the coming months on the parameters for this scholarship so that it can be offered hopefully to students graduating this May. But I know that he would want to help the athletes who become young men and women who also make differences in their community. I'm going to let the musicians close out here in a couple minutes. Just wanted to make a couple comments. When the service has concluded, please, you don't have to rush out the door. Please feel free to look around at the pictures and reminisce and to sign the guest book. I think there are some memory cards back there for you to share memories or thoughts that you have about Vince. There are LaPerry's Legacy cards. I would love to talk with you before you leave and thank you for coming. And you know, as we go into these last two pieces of music, you know, Vince was a wonderful example. Never once did he say, "Why me?" Never once did he complain about his situation. He swallowed it, and he taught me long ago, life is imperfect, life is unfair, you know, this is life. And he swallowed that so nobly. And so, though it does not Jen will sing it as well with my soul. It's not well with my soul that he is